Shalom. First and foremost, I want to begin by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Call Elohim La Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rachak Wadash. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and bishops of the great millstone that rule well. As always, peace, blessings, and salutations unto the hopeful elect tabernacle of David, scattered abroad across the four winds of the earth. Now, before I even begin, I want to start off in Ephesians 6 and starting at the 10th verse, and this is for us that are in the faith. And it says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of the Most High, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of the Most High, that you may be able to withstand in an evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girded about with truth, having on a breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. And as it is written, the just shall live by faith." And that's what we're going to have to live in these last days, as we see, the enemy mounting up. He's in the midst of a lot of changes and alterations in the earth right now, and it's, bringing a lot of travail. A lot is in ruins. A lot of things are, falling to corruption. Everything that this man puts his hands on, it leads to a corruption. But he's in the midst of trying to set himself up, exalting himself. He's trying to set himself up in the seat or in the position of being a higher power. All right. He's openly rebelling against the Heavenly Father and trying to set himself up, through his left hand, through the intelligence, these left hand entities, these left hand spirits. All right. And, this devil's going to come down with his wrath because he know that his time is short. So I want to play this Instagram clip, and this was a former OpenAI employee who was basically whistleblowing about things that were said concerning the building up of this, Silicon Valley, transhuman, artificial intelligence, fourth industrial revolution agenda. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, this was, I guess, something that he actually stated that this former employee is actually bringing out. And when you pay attention to what was actually said, he said basically the same thing that Elon Musk was saying years ago about this rollout of this technology, this artificial intelligence. All right. And I don't think any of this could have been possible if there wasn't left-hand spirits, guiding them to, setting this all up. Everything that's operating around us is operating based off of, the spirit, all right, whether it's of the left hand or the right hand. Everything that Esau is dealing with is definitely of the left hand. It's dealing with evil spirits. And when you deal with Pharaoh and the Magi, he was referred to as a god because his magicians, they were able to perform left hand miracles, supernatural performances. but it wouldn't have been possible without left-hand spirits. All right. Witches and warlocks, they're able to do certain things, deal with, spirits of the dead. They're able to fortune tell, do divination based on spirit. All right. So it's the same thing with this, AI thing, the supercomputer and, all needing all these databases. But you need spirit to operate from, because it's spirit that gives life. And what would give, what would cause the beast to be able to speak through his image? What would cause an image to be able to speak? So we're going to get into that, but let me play this real quick.
Portals from which we're genuinely summoning aliens, and Sam has added one in the Middle East. During the Biden administration, Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, explored getting a security clearance to join classified AI policy discussions. But staffers at a government contractor helping with the vetting had concerns about his foreign entanglements. One emailed that Altman had been raising, quote, hundreds of billions of dollars from foreign governments, and that, quote, the UAE recently gifted him a car. I assume it was a very nice car. The only person I can think of who ever went through the process with this magnitude of foreign financial ties is Jared Kushner, and the adjudicators recommended that he not be granted a clearance. Altman withdrew from the process. This is one of many new details in my investigation into Altman and OpenAI, which you can read in the New Yorker, link in bio. A senior Biden administration official told us Altman and his Middle Eastern alliances, quote, raised a lot of red flags for some of us, and that, quote, a lot of people in the administration did not trust him 100%. To build AI at the scale Altman wanted, he needed money that few entities on Earth possess, and the company considered extraordinary plans to achieve that. According to internal documents, the highest levels of the company once considered auctioning off access to advanced AI models to governments, deliberately playing world powers like China, Russia, and the US against each other. This was actually presented to an investor. One junior researcher remembered thinking, quote, this is completely fucking insane. OpenAI says this was just one of many ideas batted around, and it was dropped after some...
So basically all these nations, they all want that kind of power. That's why they're all in on this global technocratic agenda. Everything governed, by technology, so the technology can do the heavy lifting of their governing. So they all want in on this. That's why the MOTB is going to be, worldwide. And it's, that system is starting to close in, as they're starting to phase out, fiat, currency. All these different payment methods are now becoming more contactless, more biometric. So they're phasing out the old into this transition of a new global system. All right. So they all want that kind of power. But Esau, he has to be the one, at the top. It tells you that in Habakkuk, the second chapter, about how, he in particular, he can never have enough. He can never be satisfied. All right. So he wants to dominate. He wants to be the one at the top of it all. And that's what these other nations got a problem with. All right. But this is interesting. Let's continue.
Some employees threatened to quit. Altman connected with Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, after that monarch's alleged role in the killing of...
And ain't that interesting? Because he's saying that some of these so-called Middle Eastern leaders were in on it. And then it made me think back to that image where you saw Trump. He had his hand on that lit up crystal ball. And you also had one of the Saudi princes, with their hand on that ball as well. So that was very significant. But this is all left hand, man. Okay. But Trump will try to, pretend to be this conservative Christian who's trying to save Christianity, for Babylon. But he's a witch and a warlock, a magician. and they deal with nothing but left-hand energy. So you seeing it in real time.
Killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi came under scrutiny in 2018, Altman publicly distanced himself. But we spoke to a policy consultant who remembered that behind the scenes, Altman's question wasn't whether it was wrong to fundraise from bin Salman, but, quote, can I get away with it? He was also aggressively courting the United Arab Emirates, which made national security officials nervous. The UAE has reportedly leaked American technology to Beijing. It's also a repressive, authoritarian state. Some officials worried it could commandeer an American-owned data center and build disproportionately powerful AI. Now, the relationships that gave Biden administration officials pause are a boon under Trump. On Trump's second day in office, Altman and Trump announced Stargate, a $500 billion plan partially Emirati funded, to build a vast network of AI infrastructure across the U.S., which has since expanded to include a huge...
And this is exactly why, we're in the midst of a water crisis, a drought. They've been using weather warfare to clear out areas because they want to either set it up to build a 15-minute city or a smart city, or use it for space to build more data centers. All right. And that way that this Stargate, what's the other one? Mission Genesis, these programs where they can actually use technology to be God on earth. That's what this is all about, man. So that means more people got to suffer, and the earth itself got to suffer in order for him to be able to, garnish this level of power and authority in the earth. Okay. This is what's, giving more and more power to the image of the beast. All right.
Huge data center campus in the UAE. This kind of AI capacity is shaping the balance of power between nations and all of our security. One former OpenAI executive said, quote, we're building portals from which we're genuinely summoning aliens.
So he said they're building portals which we're genuinely summoning aliens. And we know he means basically they're summoning spirits or demons, if you will. And this is what works with them, to be able to set these agendas to be successful. All right. And that's why I started off with that in Ephesians, the 6th chapter. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. And that's dealing with spirits. You go to, let's go to it in the Greek. And the word there is arche in the Greek. And it says, when you read down at the bottom, 5, it says the first place, principality, rule, magistracy of angels and demons. All right. Like when Moses was risen up to deliver Israel out of the hand of Pharaoh, and Pharaoh had the Magi's competing with Moses. He was dealing with principalities. See? So we're up against the same thing when we're in the age of AI. Where AI has the ability to, bring people to life. They can edit your voice. They can, deep fake and take your likeness and appearance and put it elsewhere. You're gonna have a bunch of robots taking over all fields and industries. That would not be able to work without the principalities. Okay? Because everything is fueled by energy, life, which is basically spirit. All right, and it says against powers, that's dealing with the authorities, of this world, and the authorities of this world is the super rich international banking families that basically rule the world, through these banks, through the corporations that pretty much control and own everything. All right. And, guys like Trump, he's just a puppet. Bill Gates, he's just a face, and a puppet. Elon Musk is another face and a puppet. But they all are representative of the powers that be, and against the rulers of the darkness of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high places. All right. So that's why we got to be guarded and shielded, by staying in his faith, staying in the truth, staying in his word, and staying steadfast. So let me go to the old clip where you hear Elon Musk. He pretty much says it, that, with this whole AI thing, we're summoning a demon. So let me play this clip.
From Tesla Motors CEO Elon Musk, it has nothing to do with cars. Instead, Musk warned about artificial intelligence, which he has called more dangerous than nuclear weapons. Musk spoke at a symposium at MIT.
I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. You know those stories where there's the guy with the pen.
He said, we're summoning a demon. So Sam Altman says that pretty much the same thing. That he said, we're using portals, we're doing this. So we're having actual spirits and energies that are working with us, for this technocratic rollout. All right. Set up all these surveillance systems, digital systems, where it's, generating all this data and information and channeling it, using it. And, they're able to basically play God on earth, through this whole infrastructure. Now they want to, they want by 2027, they want vehicles to have surveillance technology in it that would actually use a kill switch if it indicates that you're intoxicated. It'll be able to read, probably do a face scan, facial recognition, or a face scan, and probably, look into your eyes to see, if you're inebriated, if you're under some type of influence, and it'll send a signal to your vehicle to shut down on you, if it reads that, you're not sober. I mean, some people will see that as, well, that's convenient. And that'll save, the world from the danger of fatal accidents and people, drinking and driving, or people drinking while under the influence of something. It'll bring safety, to our transportation, our roads, our freeways and stuff like that. So that sounds convenient on the surface, but take a step back and really look at what's going on here. This is extreme rule, control, and this is exactly how they want it, because they want to be able to keep track of everything that got life to it, because he thinks that he owns anything that has life to it, as if he's the Most High God himself. That we go back to Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. It says that he heaped up unto himself all people. Let me go to that. That's why he thinks he owns every nation on the earth. Let me get it in the AMP. And bear with me while I wait for it to load. Here we go. It is Habakkuk 2:5. It says, moreover, wine is treacherous and betrays the arrogant man, so that he does not stay at home. His appetite is large like Sheol, and he is like death, never satisfied. He gathers to himself all nations and collects to himself all peoples as if he owned them. And that's why he need the United Nations backing him up. This is why he need, all these nations, all these leaders on board, with what he has going. Okay. But Esau, he can't help himself. He's so greedy. He's such a niggard that he's not going to be fair, when it comes to this whole deal. He still wants to have all the control and the wealth and all the power. So this is why he's, in every nation causing all these wars and trying to steal their resources. And that's what's going to lead to, this global conflict, which already has started, with this war with Iran. I mean, it started even before then, because they wouldn't dealt with Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and Libya, all these different countries. But now they messing with Iran, and they just took a huge L in Iran. So now, it seemed as if things got a little quiet because, the West refuses to admit that they're not winning. And there's, a form of, there's a bit of embarrassment. But I think they're using this quiet time to regroup. Before you know it, they're going to be right back at it. All right. But this is all leading to, the whole global infrastructure and the change. And they need spirit. All right. They need these left-hand entities to corroborate with them. And then the fact that some of these scientists, they have been in their diligent search, they've been figuring out certain supernatural things, and the information is so valuable that they needed to keep it secret. And Esau didn't really want that out there. And the fact that they were going to possibly start telling the truth, all of them started getting eliminated. I said 13 of them, they all just were eliminated. So, Esau doesn't want certain information to get out there, but he's really trying to position himself, and that's was that Ezekiel, where he's trying to set his mind like he's the Most High. Ezekiel 28. Ezekiel 28:2, and it says, Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyrus, thus saith the Lord God, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God. I sit in a seat of God in the midst of the seas, yet thou art a man and not the Most High God, though thou set thine heart as the heart of the Most High God. He's trying to be omniscient. He's trying to be omnipotent. All right. He's trying to be all powerful and all knowing. He wants to, surveil everything. He wants his eyes to and fro in the earth, beholding everything. So that's how he sets his heart as the heart of the Most High. He wants to be the object of worship, and he envies that power, that supernatural ability. He wants that divine power. The only way he can do anything or have any type of power is if the Lord give it to him on the left-hand side. And that's why the Lord said in Micah 2, woe unto him that work evil upon their beds, and they work iniquity, they practice evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. And that power is dealing with actual power, like energy, spirit. Because I believe the word there for power in the Hebrew is Allah. So So continuing on, verse 3 says, behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that they can hide from thee. Yeah, because he does a diligent search. They accomplish a diligent search, and the heart of every one of them is deep. So that's why, you know, there's no secret that they can that could be hidden from them. You know, you got these witches and warlocks. You got these scientists, these left-hand priests and priestesses, and they work with these spirits. They tap into the portals, and they got CERN, and you know, all these different mediums of communication with the left hand. So that's how they're able to get that. You know, on the right hand, we had, you know, the prophets. You know, they had the Holy Spirit. They had visions and dreams, you know, to interpret certain things. The priest, they had the Urim and the Thummim, the Urim and the Thummim. All right, and that was a communication with the Most High through the right hand. Okay, now Esau always envied that. Okay, so let me go back to that. Let's go back to this Elon Musk clip. Play this again.
Called more dangerous than nuclear weapons, Musk spoke at a symposium at MIT.
I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. You know those stories where there's the guy with the pentagram and the holy water, and he's like, yeah, he's sure he can control the demon. Didn't work out.
I take it there will be no HAL 9000 going up to Mars.
HAL 9000 would be easy. It's way more complex than, I mean, it would put HAL 9000 to shame. Yeah. I was like a puppy dog.
Of course, referencing Space Odyssey. Following his next question, Musk blanked out and apologized, saying he was thinking about the AI thing for a second.
You know, so he was speaking real, you know, arrogant. You know, they're laughing, but these devils know exactly what's going on, right? And like I'm gonna quote it every time. 2 Corinthians 2:11. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we're not ignorant of his devices. It tells you that even he who's coming is after the workings of Shaitan. All right, the working. What is the working of Shaitan? Let's go to 2 Thessalonians. We'll read the first few verses and then we'll jump down to it. And it says, it's like your 2 Thessalonians 2 and 3. It says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And that's who's being revealed now. All right, Esau, the devil. All right, he's in the form of Babylon, NATO, the EU, and now they're spearheading this technocracy. You see, and that's them setting forth that image. But this is still after the model of the Roman Empire, you know, because the authorities that sit at the top, you know, they spring from out of, you know, this power structure dealing with, you know, Europe and America that stemmed from out of the dominancy of Europe. Okay. It says, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of the Most High God, showing himself that he is the Most High, or as he thinks, as he wishes. All right. So now he has to be revealed. And let me jump down to verse 8, and it says, I'll start at 7. It says, for the mystery of iniquity doeth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. And then shall that wicked, you know, spelled with the capital W. All right, that's how you know it's dealing with Esau, because he's the border of wickedness. It says, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, you know, i.e. the prophets, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. And that's how he's coming when he comes with the angels, because the technology that they have now, They're trying to prepare themselves for a battle with the angels in the heavens. That's the war in heaven. So the Lord's going to come with his brightness, all right, and the angels, and they're going to get busy on this devil. And they know that their technology can't hold a candle to the power of the Lord. All right. And that's why they're intrigued. They were intrigued by a lot of the information that those scientists were finding. You know, having these encounters with you know, the chariots. You know, describing the extraterrestrials, the angels. You know, that terrified Esau, man, and that's you going to one day you going to fight against it. And boy, oh boy, man, it's going to be a one-sided fight, one-sided ass whooping. It says, even him whose coming is after the working of Shaitan, with all power and signs and lying wonders. So you look up that word working. This is the Greek energeia. And it says down here, working efficiency. Right? Like you had Elon, they set up an office for Elon in the White House, and they called it the Department of Government Efficiency. But, you know, you read between the lines, that's basically we're the government of this technocracy that we're rolling out. Okay? And it says in the New Testament, use only of superhuman power, whether of God or of the devil. And if it's coming from the devil, then guess what? It's a demon. Okay? It's an evil spirit. So his working, you know, his operation is based off of an evil spirit coming from Shaitan. All right. Well, he's able to do these supernatural things on the left-hand side, just like Pharaoh and his magi's. It says, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And so those of our people that are of this world, you know, they're going to wander after the beast. You know, they're going to admire and think that, you know, this whole system is being rolled out to actually save humanity and for the betterment of the world and society at large. You know, they have this whole sustainable development goals of 2030 and all this other stuff. We're going to have a better world with renewed energy and the way we use the energy and water and, you know, all these resources. But it's all to facilitate a God complex, you know, in a second attempt at, you know, a one world regime, like they tried in the time of Nimrod, you know, where they built up a tower unto the heavens, called it the Tower of Babel. So they're doing the same thing. All right, and we know that the Lord is going to allow them to only build so far until, you know, the Lord comes back and you know, overthrow, you know, destroy it. You know, he's gonna disappoint the devices of the crafty, that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. So the Lord's gonna make sure, you know, it don't go too smooth. You know, there's gonna be disruption. They're already saying that how some of these data centers, they're straining these grids, you know, because it's taking up too much power. And so now certain things are not able to function. And one business, I think they said was worth a $14 million business? It said that AI basically, let me see if I can find it. It said that the AI data wiped it all out. Now the Lord, he could disappoint you. It was a $14 billion business. Here it is. So the Lord, he can do stuff like this, man. He can make it to where your shit backfires. It go all wrong for you. This $14 billion business is officially the first company to be completely wiped out by AI. So just imagine that, man. This is what's at stake. You know, anything can be ruined, you know, with AI going wrong, going rogue on you. It says, once the darling of Wall Street, Chegg is a cautionary tale of what happens when AI makes your entire business model obsolete overnight. Yeah. You hedging all your bets. You putting all your eggs in the basket of AI. You know, and this can very well happen. This is why you don't rely and trust in man or things, you know, controlled by man. You know, you put your trust in Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, but you know, the Most High is not he's not in their thoughts. You know, this world is under the world of Shaitan, man. You know, the God of this world. He's the God of this world. All right, but this is what they're reporting. All right. That's crazy, man. So, you know, this was just to confirm that. This is from entrepreneur.com. All right. So let me go back. And it says, verse 11, it says, and for this cause the Most High shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie. Meaning all these people that fall for it, they're going to be in a delusional state. And those are the people that's going to voluntarily take the MOTB, you know, being taken by this whole setup. Because they're going to see the miraculous things that this system can do. And they're going to be taken and had by it. But the elect are not going to be deceived. And they're going to try to deceive the very elect. And, you know, so this devil going to be coming with some stuff, man. But the level of discernment was going to be, you know, what you know, stabilizes you in these deceitful, wicked times. And it says that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. Now let me go to Revelation, because like I said, you know, what would give life, you know, to the image. This is Revelation 13. And I'll start at 11. It says, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exercised of all the power of the first beast before him, and that's dealing with the Roman Empire. And we can all agree that America is Rome 2.0. You know, the two-party system. Okay, and then you got the Senate. You know, you got Capitol Hill, right? You got the gladiator arena is known as the stadiums. All right, the modern day stadium or arena is your you know, your coliseums. Okay, so we're clearly in Rome 2.0. Nero is reincarnated and back in position. All right, so that's what this is going into. It says, and causeth the earth and them which dwelled thereon to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men. Yeah, with his missiles, you know, his bombs. You know, they watched them drop those bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. All right, now he has direct energy weapons that he uses from the heavens, and he'll use it if there's some land that needs to be cleared out, and he wants a land grab, he'll use it and, you know, damage and destroy the property on that land. He don't care if there's any casualties, and then afterwards he'll, you know, here's some aid, here's some relief. You know, we'll give you, you know, a few $100 or, you know, $1,000 or whatever. You know, now you got to go find somewhere to live. You know, now you don't have nothing, and now he just took it, and now is part of a construction, uh, you know, a construction site. And that's what he's doing now. He don't care if he's damaging his own people's habitat. The Edomites are getting affected by them fires down there in Georgia and in Florida, in them areas. The hurricanes that hit South Carolina. Those Edomites got cleared out, man. It says, and he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles, those lying wonders, which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. You know, because the first beast, which was the Roman Empire, it went down. All right, Jake took over and then assimilated into the Dark Ages and then the Renaissance, and that's when he came back, you know, out of the bottomless pit. And then, you know, he went and prevailed against the saints, took down Jake, took down the tribes. All right, came in and conquered, you know, the Western world. And then, you know, you had Babylon to form. You know, out of the war with Britain, you know, they had the Revolutionary Wars, the Civil Wars. So that's how he lived. He lived by the sword, right? But he suffered a wound by a sword. He went down, you know, during the ancient Roman Empire. You know, he had all those different wars and you know, with the Germanic tribes and so on and so forth. And then, you know, he ended up falling. So he's going to fall again by the sword because he lived by that sword. This time it's going to be nuclear. Verse 15, it says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as will not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And this is where we at. Where they're drawing a line in the sand right now on who would be compliant, all right, under this new system, you know, and they setting themselves up in that position. You know, so if you don't comply with it, you don't agree with it, you know, you speak out against it, they're going to cut you off. They're going to have you under surveillance. You know, and those that are caught, you know, speaking out, you know, I'm pretty sure they're going to